Hey, everybody, this is Tim Shaw, and welcome to our Tuesday edition of the Black Cat Lounge here in the beautiful, beautiful office that I call home. Anyway, we have a great show for you tonight, and we're going to be talking with a good friend of mine who is just like one of the coolest guys that I know for so long. There he is. Wait a minute, we got to go back. There's my buddy Jim. First of all, I want to thank everybody. I want to really thank everybody for worrying about me. The last few days, I've been sick, worn out. It's called Tim Shaw being stupid and burning the candle at both ends. And I just went and I wore myself way down. So after I didn't have COVID, guys, thankfully, but I was just exhausted. So now I'm sort of just going and just relaxing and trying to do the best we can with it. And another couple of days of sleeping would be good. Anyway, I also want to tell you guys. Let me just go and put a little something up here. I kind of like this. Last night, my buddy. See if we had. Oh yeah, we got the picture. Last night, my buddy Frank Kupka and his co-host Lydia Manson of Lock Up Paranormal. They were at the Paranormal Oddities in Depew, New York. And they went and they did a live show. And here's a little still from the live show. Pretty nice. And Joe Piari has like a crazy. He's got like a crazy setup, and it's really great the way he works. And if anybody ever wants to do a live show, you guys got to come out and you got to check out Paranormal Oddities. That's in the venue portion of the store. And it was just so much fun. And it was the first time that I got a chance to meet Lydia. And Lydia is one of the nicest people out there. Very, very knowledgeable. A former CO, just like Frank. And the best part of the whole night were the stories that couldn't be told on air. So that was great. We just had a lot of fun with it. But when I announced that I was going to bring my guest on tonight, I got a lot of people that were really, really super interested. They were just like, holy cow, what is this? What's going on? This is fantastic. I'm like, well, I think it's really going to be a lot of fun. But also it's going to be really informative. And the reason why I'm saying informative, because I think right now it's a topic that is so misunderstood. It really is. Too many people are making assumptions. Too many people are watching bad TV shows. Too many people are they're running around saying that there's demons in houses. People have attachments that they don't have attachments. It's crazy, and it's crazy. And by the way, I just let you know that I'm having some trouble with my comments. So if I don't get to them or I don't see them, I apologize right up front. Well, anyway, let me tell you about today's guest. My guest is someone who I met a couple of years ago, and you know what? He, compared to me, he's a young guy. And I was really impressed that he knows as much as he does, because of the fact, he just blows me away. And I ever since we met, we've been fast friends. We really have been. I love it. And Jimmy is a demonologist. He's a paranormal researcher. He's an ordained deacon. He's the founder of the Dominion Ministry. He's a member of the Paranormal Phenomena Research and Investigation Organization. He's the co-host of the podcast, and I can't wait. I'm going to sit down and I love podcasts, especially about subjects like this, and it's called True Evil, which is phenomenal. And let me tell you, he hangs out with an eclectic crew. He and Carl Johnson. Carl is no slouch. Carl is a world-class demonologist. They make up Duo Demonology. And we're going to talk about demonology today. We're going to talk about a lot of things that people sometimes don't want to talk about. We're going to, and if you guys feel uncomfortable, you should sit back and really listen to what we're going to say, because there's so many misunderstandings out there. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me bring to you my good friend, Jimmy Annitto, Deacon James Annitto. Jim, how are you, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. Feel a lot better. How about yourself?
Hey, it's another day in paradise. I'm above the ground, and although I got to say, I don't have a good head of hair like you. You've got like one of the look at that hair. It's just not fair in life. It's just not fair. What can I tell you? Well, I do have some hair, but we don't
Hey, at
want to
least you
get.
save money, not have to get haircuts, right? You could just shave.
No, hey, listen. Those shavers are not cheap. So I just want to let you know, Jimmy.
True that.
I want to jump into this right now. First off, I don't think I ever asked you this question.
Of course.
What made you become interested in the field of demonology? What was the calling? Because we all have callings with what we do. What was that true calling that, like, one day you said to yourself, this is the path I want to take?
So I was always enamored in the paranormal. Of course, I seen a great post. Somebody asked about what was your favorite paranormal show, and one of mine, of course, was Scooby Doo. And I was very eclectic when I was younger, but I was also agnostic and wasn't necessarily an individual who believed in God because of the traumatic history that I grew up in and the troubled childhood I had. And I was raised in a Lutheran family that would go to church every Sunday, so I was in Bible study, of course. And I'm thinking, how great is God? How great is this? So, getting very interested in Darwinism and a lot of other studies within the humanities. I, of course, came across the paranormal, like Scooby Doo, Unsolved Mysteries, and very, Leonard Nimoy in Search of, and Tales of the Crypt, and so on and so on. Goosebumps, R.L. Stein. There's a laundry list I can go on that made me very enamored into the topic. And quickly to say is that I thought as a child, maybe if there were ghosts or something beyond Earth, like an alien or something like that, maybe it would give an idea and an answer what God is. A very broad question, like very open-ended question. But really what led me to demonology from the paranormal realm is that when I started dealing with residential cases and founded my own group called Ghost, we started coming across homeowners that, more than wanted an investigation. And I always felt a calling. There was one thing that I always wanted to be when I was a kid. It was either a police officer or a priest, because I thought being a priest would give me a better idea of who God is. I was, kind of came close to it in some degree, but I always wanted that kind of calling. So I started getting involved with ministry work. I was, of course, then ordained. I was a pastoral assistant for the Church of Christ, eventually became ordained, and was a deliverance minister for the Church of Christ. And so basically with that involvement and, of course, with investigating, I started studying demonology. And before the ministry thing really took off, I had kind of a launching point with a group called Beyond the Veil Paranormal. And after I left Ghost because of this opportunity. And one of the co-founders of Beyond the Veil Paranormal was Carl L. Johnson, one of the twin brothers of Keith and Carl Johnson. They were on the first two episodes of Ghost Hunters, which I was raised up in Rhode Island. So when that show came out, it was a cultural phenomenon in Rhode Island. And I remember us all calling Roto-Rooters to try to get Jason and Grant to come to our house to do our plumbing. It was wildfire, and I was always interested. Of course, I knew about Ed and Lorraine Moore, and I also knew about Father Malachi Martin, Father Gabriel Morth. I knew a lot of these headway figures in this topic. So just to get to work with Carl, I came on board as their tech manager because I have a technical background. One of my first degree programs was computer science. I was a computer programming and graphic design major. And so I knew a lot about tinkering. My grandfather got me into computers at a young age, and we used to build computers as a hobby together. And so he brought me on as a tech manager, and I got to learn so much from Carl. And from that day, working with Carl, and from those years, and eventually then breaking away for a while and doing my own thing, that's what really got me to the demonology. I started coming across a lot of situations where people not just wanted an answer, but they wanted a conclusion. They didn't want to live with it anymore, or a possibility, especially if it was negative, how to nullify it. And I was very fascinated in that. And of course, between that and the ministry work, it's been a kind of a rabbit hole ever since. I've been involved with the paranormal for 16 years. I got in it at 15 years old. And and then really started becoming a huge part of my life around 19, 20 years old, when I first founded my group, like I said, Ghosts. So, and then now, basically, 12 years later, um, I've been dealing with the demonology realm of things, and um, gaining my knowledge, and now I'm a student of psychology, and of course then eventually was ordained as a deacon through the old Catholic Church, where I went through seminary through the Catholicism. So it's been an interesting study, interesting life path. I love what I do. It's not a hobby anymore. To me, it is a vocation. And it's something I don't also make money off of either. I have a career, I have a day job, because I don't go to want to make money off of this. I do it because I care. I want to know. And, I equate science. I used to be a little bit more gullible, but I equate science now more to this than anything, because science is about asking questions. When you stop asking questions, it's no longer science. So I'm very analytical, and I always analyze the situation at hand. And being a demonologist and being involved in demonology, there's a lot to analyze, a lot to deal with, and that's what fascinates me more than anything.
I'll tell you, Jim. This is your description of yourself is so refreshing, because I love the fact that you actually brought up the whole concept of asking questions.
Yeah.
Because when we stop asking questions, we become complacent. That
Yeah.
means that anybody, meaning a person, meaning a religion, a tradition, an organization, can go and just, fill our minds
Yeah.
up, and we no longer want to become a truth seeker. And that's
Mhm.
what I always equate with you and Carl. The two of you have always been truth seekers as long as I've known both of you.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably one of the most important things that we can be when we start talking about this field. The other
Mhm.
thing is I want to bring up quickly, because I just got a I just got a message, and somebody wrote, "How can you be friends? He's Christian and you're not." And I just started to laugh, and because I thought to myself, it never occurred to me, because I never look at you like that. I look at you as someone who is devout in his beliefs and is there to help anybody who asks,
Mhm.
and we get along fine. So here's the question: neither one of us dance around fires naked with dead chickens. Well, sometimes I think Jim does once in a while, but that's only when he's cooking. But I mean, it's a crazy concept. So I want to thank you first of all for, because there's a lot of people that are not as accepting as you, and that goes for both sides. I mean, you
Mhm.
can be heathen, pagan, anything that you want, and still be prejudiced against traditions and religions. So, that's why we get along so well, I
We
think.
might not agree, but we can agree to disagree. And what the thing is, at the end of the day, we both know that we do good for people and do good for ourselves. And that's what's important, as long as we spread good. Now, if you were a bad person, I still might linger with you and talk to you. And because people make mistakes, and people eventually
Mm-hmm.
maybe realize that, and they turn the 180 and come good. But you're a great person, and there's no reason, because we might have a difference of opinions in what created us or how things work. That doesn't mean that you're a bad person.
But isn't that the fun of it? Isn't that the fun of it, being exposed to all different concepts and ideas, and sit there and talk about philosophy, and sit there and understand what it is? I think it's great. And one of our Facebook users has written here, "It's not crazy, Sir Tim. People should stop categorizing." Sir Tim, that must be Miss Aida. People should stop categorizing each other and learn from each other. So I
Yeah.
mean, instead, I have to agree there. But let's get into something that is a pet peeve of mine. Okay, I see you grinning already, because you know how you know me too well now.
Yes.
Let's talk about, first of all, I want to talk about attachments.
Of course.
Are attachments as prevalent as so many of these paranormal people, teams, individuals seem to make it. In my lifetime, I get every so often, of course, you're going to get an attachment, like attracts like, or you're going to get someone who's downtrodden, who's given their power away, given their dominance away, and you're going to have something that's attached to them. I can say that in my entire life, I probably have run into about 20 true attachments. But the problem is do you feel that the human imagination creates sometimes these attachments, as in, like, the human imagination can create thought forms, and people just sort of get them, and then all of a sudden, like 4 days later, they disappear, they dissipate.
Yeah.
It's like, are you sure that you had an attachment, or somebody told you had an attachment?
Yeah, so I think you gave a lot of it. What I would say, basically, to be honest with you, I think attachments do occur in the spiritual sense, but also in the physical sense, and of course the mental sense. We are attached. We are humans. We are every day living by the same kind of way we live every single day. We wake up, go to work, and we do the same thing. We're attached to that livelihood. So when people, of course, are lonely, or dealing with something that they don't understand, it could be a psychological issue or a physiology issue. Sometimes that thing that permeates in their head is that there's something that's affecting them. But even in the sense of a spiritual attachment, which I think is occurable but quite rare as well, is that anytime with an attachment, the attachment only lingers as long as you allow it feedback. If we could all be having attachments, but if you're not paying attention to what is occurring to you, then, and like, let's say I teach a demonology class for a select few individuals on usually on Mondays. And my little analogy to them last night was this monkey. And I said, this monkey right now, if I have an attachment, this monkey can go flying, right? If I pay mind to it and I react, then I'm feeding into that attachment. But if I look at it and then I continue on my daily life, continue doing this show, or continue listening to music, or maybe go for a walk, that cancels out that reaction. And that is what cancels out an attachment. So regardless if it is of spiritual, physical, or a mental attachment, then what we play into it is how it continues. And I think people do jump the gun because, unfortunately, maybe I would have had a different answer. Like, you can listen to my interviews from 10, 11, 12 years ago, even 9 years ago, where maybe I had a difference of an opinion. But I now start to see that we linger on to things. And the word is, it's like the Wild Wild West. It's thrown around like gunslingers. And
oh yes, amen. Amen to that one.
But it does happen. And what we have to look at is the characteristical form of dissecting the person, the traumas that they've dealt with or are currently dealing with, why they are dealing with it, and dissect that. And then if they are truly dealing with the spiritual attachment, maybe they went to a location, not level-headed, their mind wasn't on their shoulder, their head wasn't on their shoulders, and they were dealing with things. Maybe they did bring something with them. But once again, that can be gone in a day, that could be gone in a week, but it's really dependent on the person's willpower. And as the answer, because I am part of a parapsychology group, a nonprofit organization, PPRI, out of Canada / New England, is that I do believe in ESP, and I do believe in Tulpa's thought forms, poltergeist, and that ability, something like the Philip experiment. If you put enough intention, let's say if you're not dealing with the spiritual attachment, but you put enough emphasis into it, you project this reality and set forth, and you believe that this unseeable force is affecting your life and is lurking over your shoulder, like most people would state it if they have abilities, then yes, I think they can project that into reality, and then other people can experience it as well. We can see this in a psychological term, and this actually comprehends the paranormal world too: shared hallucination, and they can become a part of what is occurring because they become enamored into it as well.
Perfect. And you do know my weak spot. You know that I love anything about the Philip experiment, and you're 100% correct, because too many people do just, they don't realize that going to a haunted location and you're not 100% in your own head, you can open up that door. Now let's talk about possessions, because possessions, again, I've worked with two exorcists and and some other demonologists over the years, and yes, I'm gonna now. I don't believe, my religion doesn't teach angels and demons and heaven or hell, but it does teach lower vibrations, higher vibrations. All it is semantics. It's just the words that I use to describe it.
Yep.
And that's how you and I can meet always in the middle, because it always means the same thing. It's just we call it different things.
It's all hypothetical. We have a hypothesis of this
exactly
occurs. So people tend to forget what a theory is.
Yes.
A theory is by definition uncertain belief, but we can still have belief in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: do you find that, and I mean, I know that you have worked different cases. Do you find that most of the possession cases that you've either examined the cases or actually had hands-on work are 50-50? It could be something negative, but also it's the psyche of the individual who may allow it, such as, like, if you of course, the seminal work Hostage to the Devil by Malachi Martin, you see how a person gets worn down through infestation and things of that nature. But in order to go and give yourself, or in order to be possessed, you actually have to agree to give yourself over.
Yeah, there's an invitation, but that invitation. So demonic infestation, oppression, and then possession. But there's, of course, obsession as well, and then in possession there's two categories.
Right.
What is more prevalent is the transient possession, the demon or the negative spirit, malevolent spirit comes and goes because of the person's willpower, the free will to fight, and it kicks it out. Then it comes back when they're in a weakened state. But possession definitely can only occur when the person has physically, mentally, or spiritually given up.
Exactly.
Saying I can't do this anymore, and that's enough of a trigger right there, because that's spoken. I can't do this anymore. But in the same realm, we were just talking about negative spirits and attachments. Attachment only can linger with you as long as you feed into it as well, and it can get powerful with the more you allow it to insert into your life. So in the same way, while you are being oppressed by this malicious diabolical force, then it breaks you down to that breaking point, that boiling point where you explode, and then it inserts itself and is then able to contort and use you as a catalyst. But yes, possession can only occur with invitation. And what's transparent to me in my cases, I've only ever dealt with 3 true possession cases in my mind that I've ever come across, that a psychologist, like psychiatrist, or and a physician has clearly ruled anything wrong with them in what is in the DSM-5 or any biological books or anything that can be documented by humanity at this point in time by empirical evidence. So 3 cases in 16 years is not quite a lot, but even in those 3 cases of this transient possession, there was traumatic episodes prior in their life that was the entryway of this point, either sexual misconduct, like being sexually molested or raped, or being abused by their parents, or being around junkies, or being abused mentally or physically. That was always a piece to the puzzle. But you have to dig it, and a lot of people don't, because they deal with the spiritual issue, and and I think it's a hidden piece of the puzzle. Yes, you could probably maybe do an expulsion or exorcism or banishment, and it might be successful, but until you find the root cause of why that lingers, why it is there, then I think the entryway is always there. And for me, especially more so my modern stance of it, is that I always try to find the root cause. And that's where I tend to lose people, because they don't, when I say go see a psychiatrist, a psychologist, they think I'm thinking they're crazy. But all I'm thinking is that they need some reinforcement. They need another form of psychotherapy,
Exactly.
just prayers and holy water being thrown. They need reinforcement in every aspect of their life.
Everything breaks down in my book to cognitive reinforcement,
Yeah.
going and re-empowering the person, because especially when we have human targeted poltergeist cases, which a lot of times is psychokinetic in nature,
Mhm.
or we start talking about something that is rather negative in the house, such as haunted possessions, or something that is affecting it. I always remember Johnny Zaffis telling me, dude, you got to go and look at what's powering this thing. You gotta go and pull
Yeah.
the batteries out so that it lessens it. And I feel a lot of times it's the people themselves that cause the haunting. First of
Mhm.
all, cause the haunting, but also they cause that possession because, like you said, there is an entryway. There's always an entryway. People don't want to admit it. People are ashamed to admit it. And that's a problem with today's society because they won't go and seek professional help,
Yeah.
and that's where guys like you and I, we have to put up our hands and say, okay, well, I can't go any further. And I'll tell you what happens to me when I had to do that. All of a sudden, I'm the asshole. I'm the guy that doesn't care. I don't care if these people live or die. No, 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 no. I can't help you until you learn to accept help from me and you help yourself and understand what happened to you. It's always it's
Yeah.
almost always abuse. That's the number one thing that I've run up against. Sexual abuse is far more prevalent in today's society than we've ever gone and we've ever seen before.
Yeah.
And maybe I shouldn't say ever seen before. I will say that it is actually uh, has come to the limelight now.
Of
And
course.
people are missing that. And I know for a fact that paranormal teams, well-meaning paranormal teams that have no clue when it comes to anything that of that psychological nature, or your new agers out there, and I'm going to apologize right up in front to everybody that I call these people new agers, because you just can't go into a house with burning sage, say a couple incantations, and dance around and expect something really nasty to clear out or whatever. People are missing the point. This is what we do by doing cleansings and clearings, and we start talking about possessions, is a lot more cognitive than what people are giving credit for. And you hit the nail on the head. We can go in there and spray Florida water, holy water. I can go in my garden and get a concoction of nasty weeds and smoke a place out, and it's not going to go unless the people who live in that house are ready to take that step
Yeah.
forward.
It might cancel it out for a short period of time, but let's say if let's say in the sense, and I try to use this as a standpoint. If you go in and do your ritual, yes, it might cancel it out for a few days, for a few weeks, for a few years. But when that interpersonal fighting occurs again, either within yourself or in a family environment, there's going to be an uproar in that energy. I like to equate new thought theory of laws of attraction, and there's of course laws of
Yes.
attention as well. But that has a lot to do with it because I look at it in a physical sense. Stress and anxiety has a lot to do with why things linger, and we can see that in a personal life. But I use this standpoint where if we go to work every day and it's a good environment and we're a bad person, it might eventually roll off on you and you might having a different behavior, a different personality trait. You might be more open.
Yes.
But if you're a negative person going to a negative environment, you're going to be enamored in that situation. You're going to either there's going to be interpersonal fighting or there's going to be a connectivity. But if you take a person that's positive and you put them in a negative workplace, it's going to be detrimental to them. It's going to eat at them. It's going to detract their morale, and they're going to have this stress and anxiety that builds forth, and they're going to hate going to work every day, and they're going to start hating their life. So that has a lot to do with it because for people that deal with paranormal situations, they go to work to try to escape with what they're dealing with at their house. But when they come back to their house, they're dealing with these negative repercussions, these situations at hand that contort them and 180 them, and it's basically them going to their work environment. If it was negative, it really does a lot to you. And you hit the nail on the head with the sexual thing, like incubi and succubi cases.
Exactly.
If you really looked into the individuals that were dealing with that, if they were truly dealing with that, they probably subconsciously or consciously maybe know or don't know that they were touched or molested when they were younger. And a lot of these people have no clue they were ever, because guess what? One thing that a lot of young kids do when they are sexually touched, they put it in the recesses of their brain and they forget about it because it's a black memory to them. Well, guess what? It happened, and that rolls back forth, and it plays in a paranormal situation, or could be a paranormal situation, and the spirit that is doing these things, these spiritual molestation, might know this and use that against you, and it brings subconsciously a thing that you might not have at the forefront, and they utilize that.
Exactly. Hey, we're going to take a 30-second break to pay some bills. We'll be right back. Our guest tonight is Deacon James Annitto, one of the coolest guys I know and one of the best guys I get a chance to run into when I'm out in the circuit. You're listening to the Black Cat Lounge, and we'll be back in just a bit.
The Black Cat Lounge is sponsored by Paranormal Oddities, The Little Store with the Big Heart, Buffalo Phantom Hunters, Patronus Photographic for all of your photography and design needs, Nancy's Sewing Room, masks, aprons, purses, and more, and Wild Raven Candles for those magical times.
Hey, everybody, this is Tim Shaw, and you're listening to the Black Cat Lounge here, where the elite meet next to the dumpster transfer station actually is where we are. But our guest tonight is James Annitto, and we're talking about demonology, and we just really have only just begun to answer some questions. And Jimmy, baby, how are you? Good to see you back.
I'm doing good, sugar.
You're just beautiful, baby. You're just as
I'm all shook up.
Yeah, we're both shook up. Now, comment from the room we have right here. So cognitive behavioral therapy might address the challenges.
For sure, definitely. I think it can. I think in some cases we have seen situations where somebody is dealing with a spiritual ailment and they are wrongfully medicated or put into a room. But what could occur is if the person that is under the spiritual ailment is spoken to and sidetracked to what is going on, things might still occur and probably will occur. But the more that you put less, like we said, put less into the battery or the energy into that battery, then it will start to dissipate. It might take longer, but it could work. But the problem is where you have to stop being a victim and more of a warrior. And people don't like to hear that because they think I'm targeting the people when I use the word victim, but it's the truth. You can either succumb to what is occurring or you can overcome it. And a lot of people start to wither because unfortunately some people are built differently and they're not able to stand their ground.
Exactly.
But if you seek out somebody, hell, even Hippocrates, the father of medicine, performed exorcisms as a psychotherapy. I know this for fact because I read somebody's well, I also did this through my research, but I knew a psychology individual that has their master's degree who did a dissertation paper on Hippocrates performing exorcisms, and they got an A on it. They have enough research, they have enough references, and of course, I read the paper, and then I did my own research. So the father of medicine performed exorcisms on people as a form of psychotherapy, and it worked. But so can't other forms of psychotherapy out of the spiritual realm. Like you could go to a person that this is of course a double-edged sword where it could be 50-50. It could make it worse or more or work. But somebody with schizophrenia, you can go in their house and do a blessing, and that's all they might need. And then of course that solves the issue. Or you can go in there and it heightens the situation because you're feeding into their reality, their imaginative reality.
Yes, and that's something that we talked about off the air lately. I'm getting more. I've gotten several of those type of deals where people have gone in there and done rituals. Now, a ritual can be anything from something that, we all get dressed up in funny clothes and we splash water around and whatever, or it can go to somebody just going into a house and saying that they're going to set the intention to clear it and walk around with sage or whatever. And what people aren't realizing is ritual. I use ritual,
Me too.
Jimmy. When I go in to do something like this, I make sure that I know what the spirituality of the clients are first and foremost, so that I can go and form this ritual that I'm going to do to the needs of the client. I mean, you don't walk in with sage if you've had somebody that's been brought up Roman Catholic and is more comfortable in that environment, even though they are not practicing. So you use something like frankincense, to reinforce that belief that, that they're being empowered, that they're clearing the house. You're reinforcing it. And people are missing that point. Too many of the New Agers think that it's magical. First of all, some of my Native American friends are like appalled that people use sage, because that's like cultural, appropriation. That's people don't like it. Some don't like it. Others don't mind if you're doing it reverently.
Yeah.
But the idea is that one it's not a one-stop shop. One type doesn't go and clear everything, doesn't work with everybody. Everybody's individual, and they're not getting that, unfortunately. And that's where I really it's really starting to upset me.
Yeah.
And No, go ahead, my friend.
No, I have a perfect, for the simplification of it. What I tend to tell people with sage or frankincense or some sort of incense is I use a physical reality out of the spiritual realm. I say, okay, spring cleaning. You can clean your house. You can mop your floors. You can take the dust down. You can do all that. Or you can, let's say I could take Old Spice. I can spray it. It smells great. It didn't clean the issue. The house is still dirty, but
exactly,
it smells great.
You've got it,
and that might help take the smell of garbage away. But guess what? Once that smell dissipates from the atmosphere, the smell comes back.
Exactly. And this is what drives me up the wall.
My house smells like Old Spice now, by the way.
Well, that's okay. But I mean, it's like a Band-Aid. That's all we're doing. That's all people are doing, is sometimes putting Band-Aids on there. And they're not addressing the true nature of what's going on. As far as I'm concerned, a lot of these cleansings, you go into, somebody just bought a house, so you want to clear out some of that negative energy. You want to make it your own. You want to be able to go and sweep some things out. But Jimmy, how many times have you gone into a house where, let's say that we've had some kind of infestation, which is that's a couple steps up from a regular haunting, where Aunt Bessie's standing at the foot of your bed going, hello, you've got, you walk into the house and the dishes from 3 days ago aren't done. You walk into the house and you look in the corners and you see dirt in the corners of the kitchen. You walk into the house, the bed isn't made. There's stuff all over the place. The clothes are on the floor next to the hamper. You have to go and you have to address the chaos in your life before you can address the spiritual problems in your life. Yeah. I mean, I know you've had that problem going into several cases.
Yeah. One of my most prolific cases that I always remember and I always laugh is because it was one of my first residential cases of Carl with Beyond the Veil Paranormal. And of course, they were called in, and I'm just the tech guy at this point, but I'm there to, of course, document and collect data. But why I will always remember this is because I stumbled upon it, and it basically kind of unraveled the onion, and then we left. So in the situation, I forget exactly where it was. I think it was probably relatively close to Rhode Island, Massachusetts. But basically, we had gone to this person's house. They were of course given the signs of smell, and they could have been truly dealing with a spiritual issue. We maybe have never truly were able to understand that because of the chaos they lived in. It was very unhealthy. But basically, what had happened is the house had this permeation of smell, and you could easily smell it once you walked into the house. And we didn't put two and two together until the kind of the grand mystery was unraveled. But mind you, we're sitting on their furniture, we're talking, doing their interview, asking them what's going on. Carl, of course, is being inquisitive and asking questions out of left field. And of course, I'm not nosy, but when I think you investigate somebody's house, you investigate somebody's house.
Agreed.
You're looking at, if they're talking about, like, this is a good example. Carl and Elise had a show on A Haunting where writing was done on the mirror. And in the mist, after taking a shower, you can write on it and it lingers. But, there was lettering, like writing done that had nobody's calligraphy or any kind of writing within their house. So it was different. So I look at see if they're, if they tell me there's no medications, and same with Carl, if there's no medications, but there's a laundry list of medications on their, in their drawers or something like that, then they're lying to you. But so being kind of nosy, I'm shuffling around, our stuff's on the ground, and we were there probably no more than an hour, but I stumble upon a room. We asked if they had animals. They said they had, I think if I remember correctly, 2 cats. I stumble upon a room with 11 cats.
Uh-oh.
And and then it kind of hit me. That smell, the furniture we were sitting on was cat piss. It was ammonia. They were spraying in the house. They sprayed on the furniture. Mind you, we were sitting in this, and it was oh, no wonder why they're having these experiences, because ammonia tends to create hallucinations in a large concentration. So yes, that even though that ammonia and that the hallucination maybe could have created a true paranormal reality, maybe something was occurring in a spiritual sense after them believing in it enough and living in that environment. But at the root cause of it, it was because they had 11 cats, which is, I believe, quite illegal in Massachusetts. And they were hoarding these cats, and they were allowing them to basically piss everywhere. And that was the cause of that, in my opinion. And we left as soon as we of course, weren't rude and didn't say this is why we're leaving, but we said, we're going to go, basically. And that's one of my cases that I always look upon, because it was one of my first residential cases with Carl. And this was supposed to be a demon.
I get that a lot. A lot. It's the same thing. And again, I think the problem is that paranormal investigators, and again, this is just coming from me, lack a certain spirituality to their work, where they automatically are not assuming that it's spiritual, but they're automatically not assuming that it's natural either, where it's like they're not looking in all the right spots. They're not looking for a cause. They're a natural cause. They're looking for your basic, I got an EVP, I got this, or I got that. And that's a problem. I got a question for you. Now, this is always good, because I've had a lot of discussions, and I'll just put air quotes around discussions on this question. Do you feel that it's possible for demonic influences to be passed down, negative influences to be passed down from generation to generation, which means a family, let's say a family says that it's cursed?
Yes and no. I think that the root cause of it is that a lot of people don't understand when it comes to curses like that in a family sense, where it passes down from generation to generation. Is one thing that's forgotten within that conversation. It is usually openly talked about within the family. So if that person dies, that next person in the generational line tends to kind of think on that thought, okay, now I'm cursed. And it tends to be this kind of passing of the torch. Sometimes if it is not even spoken about, and this is something that neuroscience has started to uncover more recently within the past 10 years, is that memories can be passed down by genes.
Right.
And even though you might have never known your grandfather, his memories could have been passed down to your mother, then passed down to you, and it could be there, and then it could activate. So I think a lot of these times curses do exist, but they exist within the permeation with ourselves. You know, it's somebody like, and a prime example, we were both on a haunting, Tim, right? There was an episode
Yes.
called Nevermore, where, you know, the ex-girlfriend was into Santeria, and the boyfriend knew that she was into all this crazy stuff about hexing people and doing this, and forming these patterns of setting out this intention. So his relationship fell apart. And he also told the girlfriend about it. So there already is a cognitive state of, okay, this can be happening because of her. And then it revels, it plays a key part. So yes, curses can exist, but it's really a passing of that torch, because even though you might have heard it once, oh, we have a generational curse, a family curse, that once can be enough of it to be inserted into your life once that person
Agreed.
that's dealing with that ailment or situation, for it to be passed down. But for a demon to start possessing an individual because the other person was possessed, that's non-negatable, because once again, if you go back to what we said about being invited, that person's a different person. They might have the same blood, same genetics to a small extent, but that doesn't give something the ability to possess an individual.
Exactly.
There has to be that stance of saying, take me over, or I give up, like I had stated, not to beat the dead horse. But
Right.
you know, generational curses are more about the spoken form of what it is.
Just to get back to your cellular level, we know that in transplants, some patients relive the memories of their donors, which is like amazing. And self-fulfilling prophecy is one of the biggest pluses and minuses in our business, because it's, you know, there are some people I just want to slap, because they go out there and they do these investigations, and they go and they paint this negative picture for these homeowners, these residents, these people that live in these locations. And then they get in their car and they drive off and they go to Denny's and eat their pancakes. That drives me insane. On the other hand, guys like us will go in there, and I shouldn't say just guys like us, really well-meaning people will go in there and say, let's talk. Let's figure this out together. Let's stop the self-fulfilling prophecy. Let's go and just say, hey, you know, just because your grandmother said that back in the old country, somebody she got hit with the evil eye, and she's had miscarriages and all this other stuff. You know, there's so many other things that could cause this. And that's why, yes, in a lot of the traditions that my friends are all a part of, they all believe in that. They believe in that you know, that something can be passed down. I'm of the nature where it's more self-fulfilling prophecy. When you hear a story, you incorporate it in your own life. When you incorporate it in your own life, what happens? It becomes intrinsic, and it becomes part of you. So that's something that is amazing. Now, my friend Peg here has got another good question. Now, I only know of a few of these cases, and it's not very common, but maybe you know more of it. Has there ever been any kind of genetic testing done on people who were deemed possessed? And if so, were there ever any abnormalities found? I have actually, I read 2 studies where after death, there was autopsies that were not genetic work, but autopsies that were performed, and they did have small brain tumors. So we don't know if that is what was the cause of it or not, but each one of them did have a small brain tumor. Do you know of any any genetic testing or any kind of testing that is
not
done?
that I can think of off the top of my head? But I will say, though, if there is, and I think we talked about this a little bit, and you said with the Hostage to the Devil of Malachi Martin.
Yes.
I think that if you are an individual, and Annalise McKell is a heavily debated topic, because she died of malnutrition. But if she really truly was possessed, which I do think she was, even though there was seizures involved and other medical issues, that if you're dealing with this, And especially if it is in the perfect possession state, which is very, very rare, your body starts to wither, because imagine what stress and anxiety do to you. It can kill
Exactly.
you. So
Agreed.
imagine this diabolical force permeating within your body, taking you over. It's going to deteriorate the body very rapidly. And of course, in Annalise McKell's situation, it wouldn't allow her to eat. Because and that's why she died of malnutrition. She couldn't take it in because the demon, her body withered away because of the kind of the permanent state that she was dealing with. But yeah, I think that it is quite possible, if you do like a study on one of these individuals, like genetic testing, that there might be something that shows up. But yes, the body, like the brain tumor, could be quite possible, because the brain, that your cognitive ability starts to deteriorate if you're not using it, right? So, and there's things that can occur.
Exactly. Hey, I got another question for you, and I'm not gonna keep you all night, but I promised you before, because you've got another show to do. Because why? You are James Annitto. Super.
I got a show at 9:00, so you can keep me as long as you want. I love the Black Cat Lounge.
You know, we were talking about good-natured people who mean to do good,
Yeah.
but they're not trained. When someone is, I don't want to use the word shopping, when somebody is looking for, let's say, someone of your caliber that has the experience in what you have, what should they be looking for? I mean, one of my first questions is not what's your experience level. It's, did you mentor under somebody? Did you learn? You know, when you know, what should they be looking for?
Well, I think if you're an individual dealing with people, for one, you have to learn individuals. You know, you might not be the all-knowing expert. Even psychologists are ever learning. Like I said, science is about asking questions, and sometimes there's answers involved with those questions, but usually that answer involves more questions. So I think for the people that get involved with this is, of course, having a mentor. You know, my first mentor was Carl. Then I've been able to, you know, work with people like John, Ralph Sarchi, Keith Johnson, yourself, Tim, and a plethora of other people that I have had the pleasure of working with. But yeah, I think that when people are using the word shopping, because I like that word, because I've dealt with it where they've dealt with 20 different teams, 30 different people.
Yes.
But I think when people are looking for it, because this is a hard field, it's not like you can call an electrician, are you licensed? And even though they might be licensed, they still might screw your house up. So you have to always be careful. There's no BBB for paranormal investigators, but there's one thing that there is, especially if you are looking for somebody, they have a biography, a website like yourself, which, by the way, my website is spelled wrong on your thing. But if you go to our websites and you look at our biographies, most of the time we state with people who we work or where we come from. Like you study at Lilydale, right? Mm-hmm. You know, there is that backing. Me, I work and still currently work with Carl with demonology. People can use my references. Oh, how is that James Annitto guy? You know, is he going to do a good job? And if they get good feedback, then great. But also another thing I tell people to look at is, we also said this earlier, if the people charge. Yes, of course, if you're seeking me out and I'm far distance and gas money might be a thing. Like if I'm a Walmart worker, yeah, and I'm trying to do good for people, and that person's set on me and they throw me $100 in gas, that's great. But you're not the person supposed to be asking for that. That's a donation from the person out of the kindness of their heart. And most of the times I'd probably say 99% of the time, I've always denied it, because I said, this is not why I'm here. So if you come across with people that charge you, and every time that you visit is a charge, then you need to cut them out ASAP. Because I had a case in Rhode Island, near Scituate, Rhode Island, where the lady almost dropped $50,000 on somebody. And she kept dealing with this issue over and over again. She was an older woman. Definitely there was something a little bit wrong with her in the cognitive sense, but She dropped $50,000. This is a case that I worked with Keith Johnson on. He was actually dealing with it before. Then I got involved when I was running the Dominion Ministry, and we kind of worked together on it because we wanted to try to ease her away from, okay, stop dealing with that person, deal with us. We don't maybe necessarily think it's all supernatural, preternatural, spiritual, but if there is a small portion, we can help you on that. But we can help you without you being charged $50,000. And she didn't like what we had to say, and she went back to spending all her money on that other individual. I can only imagine what that receipt list is now. Hopefully she wrote it off on taxes. But if she didn't, she definitely was somebody that was exploited, and exploitation is a big thing to look at.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Now, when you think about it, Mrs. Takata went, and I believe it's been so many years since I've studied Reiki, but she went and she charged $10,000 to become a master, Reiki master. And the reason why she did it, because she felt that the Western mind did not go and respect anything that they didn't go and spend a large amount of money on. And I've seen that time and time again, where people will go to, as a reader, as a medium myself, I will go and I charge, I just had to raise my prices, and people come up to me and say, well, you should be raising them higher than that. What's wrong with you? You're making us all look bad. But they don't understand that people will go to them regardless of their ability before they go to me, because they feel that they're going to get their money's worth. And that's something that I don't have a problem with it, because, you pay what you pay. And that's the way I feel. But when we start looking at things that become obsessive like that, there's nothing that you can do except offer, try to help, and then back away when they say no. I got a question for you. Another question for you, Jimmy.
I'll do my best to answer.
You feel that paranormal investigators are doing a disservice because they become so obsessed with the topic? And by disservice, I mean, do you think, and again, natural laws, we all talk about that, like attracts like, and that sort of thing. Do you think that they're actually going into residences and bringing spiritual baggage with them because of this obsession and leaving it behind when they leave?
I think so. I think that's quite a possibility. I think that most of the time, maybe there are something going, but usually we always hear that when somebody leaves, it's kind of, I always use like, that person sleeps in the house, I leave and go to the comforts of my own house. But a lot of times you hear that things intensify after a group leaves. Is that because they were asking questions, or is it because they were asking questions and maybe they had something that was spiritual baggage? They left it. Transference is a good word to use.
Yes.
They transferred their negative emotions. They left it there, and it started to permeate with what was going on, and amplified the situation. I think this happens to a lot of places that the paranormal investigators or ghost hunters go investigate, like these known places. Like there might not be something there. Like for me, Lizzie Borden's is a prime example. The place is a historical value. But in that same sense, I think what you experience there is more so of what the thousands and thousands of thousands of people that have been there, and they continue going there and permeate within the property. Fall River in itself is not a great area, so that doesn't help as well to not amplify it. But I think definitely that we all have a piece to it, and I use this as a reference. Charles Dickens, one of the most prolific ghost hunters or paranormal investigators of our time, of the 1870s and 1890s, of the Ghost Club. One of his first writings was a beginning chapter and an end chapter of a pamphlet called "A Haunted House."
Yes.
And he even states that the human dynamic is what causes the haunting. So if the paranormal investigator is under some sort of distress and they bring that, they amplify it and become a part of that haunting. So I think it's quite a possibility. I think we are the piece to the puzzle, and I always like to ask the philosophical question. If there were no humans, would there be hauntings?
Well, that's the greatest way to think of it. Would there be a haunting?
Yeah.
Another question when it comes to obsession, baby. You ready for this one?
Ding, ding, ding. Sure.
Do you think that some people who are so possessed too, so they're just they just want something to happen, they become so obsessed with it, can attract something negative that masquerades as something positive that will turn around and will stroke the ego to the point where they think that I'll just say it's the cat's ass, because I before I get kicked down, I thought I was the cat's ass at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most of us go through that. But I mean, they get to that point where it's like, you know, they really, it's like this thing, whatever it is, sets them up and then pulls the rug out from underneath them, making them crash, and then slowly goes and repeats itself. And it's because they're so obsessed with either being the best or being the person that can do all this stuff, or trying to go and boost a damaged ego from childhood. Do you think that that's possible?
Yeah, definitely. I think that one of the things that I take from a case I did in Virginia is this individual. I do believe maybe had some sort of ability. I think anybody has abilities.
Yes.
I think it is a sense that some people are more amplified into. You know, some people can see better than others. Some people can have better taste buds and smell better. So it's always possible that somebody has a keener sense. But I think this person did have a sense, and they were dealing with the situation. I don't want to call it demonic, but what was occurring was that their spiritual abilities, their sense was amplified. It was making them feel more empowered. They were helping people. And in their mind they were. But it was playing on their senses. It was making them more empowered. They thought they were the best at what they did now. And then, like you said, the rug was pulled under them, and their world turned upside down. And then they felt that they were least, they were worthless after such a high, such the climax, and then they dropped.
Right.
I think that occurs a lot. I even think in demonic cases where the oppression is there, it's not as always as you think it is. It's not as the demonic entity starts forcing down your throat why you're worthless. But at first, it's why you are great. Then they say that you are worthless, that you are not good enough. Mm-hmm. And that is the biggest switch that really screws with people. It's because it's like telling you, it's like your girlfriend telling you every day they love you, but behind their back, they're cheating on you. And one day they say, I don't love you anymore. That really screws with you. So it's in that same sense, that in the spiritual sense, that does occur.
Exactly. One last question for you, and then we got to go, and I want to make sure that you have plenty of time to just refresh yourself so that you are this is just, you know, warming you up for the real shows that you're going to be on today.
Well, my next show is going to be totally different. Just to give a shout out, it is for about True Evil. It's with Laura Brand and I. She is the she is a criminologist, but she is the leading expert on the toolbox killers, which is in itself is fascinating. It's serial killers. Thank you. That's our first coming show, the end of February, with Jeff Bellinger, Carl, my buddy Carl, and of course my Elise, who as well works with Duo Demonology. She's a historian. But yeah, that's our first podcast doing with True Evil. But our next show is about serial killers and maybe the possibility of them being influenced by something demonic. And if it wasn't, is there a spiritual connection to it?
Yes.
And they're tested. Even somebody like, even though he wasn't a serial killer, like even Aleister Crowley, who I think is a madman, who was a drug addict, who was had a lot of psychosis issues.
Yes.
Even on his deathbed, and this is a true account, he said he basically said why. He said why, and God forgive me. So And that's really what we're looking at. We're looking at the human element and to how people are affected. And I think it'll be interesting. But yeah, it's a totally different show. So I'm ready for it. It's an interesting topic. I love true crime. It is
I do
true
too.
crime is one of the most popular things in human society. If you look at true crime documentaries, it eclipses everything else.
Mm-hmm.
People are fascinated in why people do heinous and diabolical things.
Well, I'll just let you know that I'm a fan of serial killers. So next time, Jimmy, that we're hanging out together, just keep that in the back of your mind, brother. Anyway, let's go. I got one more question for you, and it's about you know I knew the late Raymond Buckland, and he used to call a lot of, they call them now baby witches, but they used to call a lot of practitioners who never worked with anything dark. Everything was always fluffy. There was never anything dark. He used to call them fluffy bunnies.
Mhm.
And what I see a lot of is that people who will go out there and do clear cleansings will only go so far, and they won't go and they won't push themselves any further, which is okay because they're not really ready for it. But do you think they're doing a disservice to both themselves and the client? Let's say if they don't realize, at least acknowledge that there is something dark out there, because a lot of people come up to me and go, well, you work with the dark all the time. And that's not true. I work almost always in the light, but I also am not afraid of this dark. I mean, what's it gonna do to me? What that it hasn't done already. And people don't realize that. Now, I'm not talking about being a Satanist. Well, I shouldn't even say a Satanist because that's not that's a bona fide religion, a devil worshiper. I'm not going to invoke anything like evil or whatever. You got to karma comes back at you. But do you think that by not acknowledging the darkness, by not really going and understanding it to a point, that they're doing the service? And when they are counseling a client, when they are working these cases, do you think that this is a huge problem that they're running into and may be part of the reason why things are amping up negatively when they leave?
Yeah, I think if you don't look at the grander picture, if you go there with the bias, you're already doing the individual and yourself injustice. I think what I wanted to add to the paranormal investigating thing earlier, which has a lot to do with this, is when you basically stop asking the questions and you say this is what this is, what that is, what this is, this doesn't exist, you limit yourself because how do you know this doesn't exist? I also equate it to a lot of Catholic priests. I'd say, and this is a statistic that there is probably a statistic out there, but I would say from what I've met, 80% of the priests that I've ever met don't believe in demons. And I think that's a great service because I always ask myself, and then I ask them, well, you believe in God and you believe in angels, but don't you believe in the counterance of it?
Exactly.
In most cultures, Epicurus created a lot of ideas of theodicies and good and evil.
Yes.
There doesn't always have to be an evil, but anytime there is good, and we see this in a physical sense, there is always going to be somebody that doesn't like why that goodness is done, and they will try to underhand that individual. So if there is spiritual good, there definitely has to be a negative aspect to it. There has to be that good, the yin to the yang. There has to be any belief system has that formality. Paganism or let's say neo-paganism, because that's what's more prevalent now in the day. But the threefold rule, if you do it, it comes back to you threefold, right? That's either good or bad. So I think that is something to be very aware of. I also, one of the greatest questions I'm asked, especially at conventions when I was connected to the Catholic Church, is that why are you, especially wearing clerics, why are you here? And then they tell me they're Catholics, and I ask them, why are you here? Because there is a darkness, and the one thing that the darkness wants, and it's a butchered quote, but it's basically the devil does not want to know that it exists, right? It's a butchered quote that it's a
Right.
longer quote than what is actually
Yes.
said out there in these memes, but it's true. Darkness doesn't want to be known, but it exists and it needs to be out there. But what unfortunately happens, especially in our modern entertainment and pop culture and mass media, is negativity is so prolific that it outweighs all the good that actually does exist. The good actually outweighs the negative, but the negative is such a permeation within our lives, because guess what? It goes down to our physical biology, our physical makeup of fight or flight. You know, if a bush moves, are you going to think it's the wind, or you're most likely going to think it's an animal ready to attack you? So we already jumped to that negativity. We already jumped to that conclusion. That's just how we are. But we have to understand the negative does exist, but we can outweigh that with good. We will never nullify the bad, but we can keep it at bay.
Exactly. And that's my point is, people don't realize that. And, you know, in order to go and really walk in the light, sometimes you have to kind of skirt on there. It's a razor's edge. Sometimes you have to kind of walk in that darkness, you know, with that negativity. So that's where people don't get it. Now, Jimmy, we're quickly coming to an end. What are you doing? I mean, what's going on in the life of Jimmy Annitto that we all have to go and support and love?
I basically have True Evil, like you posted, coming at the end of February, the February 27th with Laura Brand. I also have my active relationship and work with Dual Demonology with Carl Johnson, Alicia Mark with Carlson. We have a litany of investigations and lectures coming up in March. Every March, we're going to be somewhere. Beginning of March, we're going to be at Tim Miley's event, Photographic Pooches 3.
That's fantastic.
And helping raise money for an animal rescue out in Michigan. And then, of course, our event at Hinsdale, New York. Thank you. They never left Hinsdale. And then, of course, we have Rochester Winter Power Fest as well. I think you're going to be there, correct, Tim?
No, not this year.
No. But so we're going to be in Rochester, New York, at the end of March, and then I have a litany of that. And then at the beginning of April, we have an investigation at the Hoover House near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And then there's just a wildfire from there. There's so many more upcoming events. I have the great pleasure. It just got moved from May to November. I don't know if I'm supposed to announce this, but I announced it, I guess, now. But it originally was announced to be May, but in November, as long as everything goes all right in Ukraine, I am one of the ambassadors for a trip to Romania, and we're going to investigate Ron Castle, Vlad Tepes's fortress, stay at Hotel Transylvania. And I'm very fortunate to be that ambassador alongside Patty Negri. So that's what I'm really, truly looking forward to, because that's a bucket list item for me.
And Patty is one of my favorite people.
She's a sweetheart. I love her to death.
I'll tell you what, I can't think of being in the middle of the world's largest planche doing a Ouija board session with anybody else but Patty.
I seen that on Ouijazilla. That's awesome.
That's funny. Hey, stick around for a couple seconds. I want to thank you properly. And again, thank you so much for being on the show. You are a wealth of information. I am so thankful that you came on. And, I mean, I can't think of anybody better. Well, Carl, I would say Carl, but that's only because he's older. That's we have to stroke Carl a little bit and say he's the greatest person too. But you guys really do a great job. And Jimmy, thank you again, because you've really illuminated a lot of different subjects, and we were all over the place tonight. And I really think that you've helped a lot of people by really getting them to think and look through your eyes a little bit and see what the truth really is. So thank you so much. Stay on the line, my friend.
Thank you for having me on, Tim, and I cannot wait to see you the 19th, my friend.
I can't wait. It's going to be fun. But don't expect me to buy dinner. We'll talk about that.
I'll buy dinner.
No, you won't. We'll talk. Anyway, thank you guys for being on tonight. Jimmy is probably one of the greatest guys I get a chance to work with. And I'm telling you, he's a sweetheart, and he's so knowledgeable. And I got to tell you that I feel that I'm blessed being, having met him and knowing him. So anyway, guys, this is Tim Shaw. We're at the Black Cat Lounge, where the elite meet next to the dumpster transfer station. Be good, stay healthy. Remember one thing. Ciao, babies. Take care. Use your common sense. Bye, guys.